is Aussie Insider reporting for Blood Money TV, and my day job is database development. So today I want to just have a little chat about what I see happening with the data. So to begin with, there seems to be a lot of chatter about the number of missing children in California City being so high. So that's probably the first thing we want to look at. But before we go there, we're just going to sort of have a quick look around to see where people may be getting this idea from. So I'm looking at the Office of Attorney General for California State, and it says on that website, it's talking about the database, which is a subset of all persons reported as missing by law enforcement in the state of California. And it gives us a value. It says the number of active missing person cases averages around 20,000 in California. That's California, the state, not California, the city. What that sentence is missing is context. As Benny's been pointing out quite a lot lately, that context is key. So what is that average? Is that an average per week, per month, per year? We don't really know what that average is because it doesn't necessarily say there. So it does seem to be quite a lot of people. So that's why we're going to look into whether there is quite a lot of people that go missing in California, specifically California City, and B, whether that has any correlation to trafficking numbers. So one of the rumours going around is that the children were trafficked, and so we're going to sort of have a look at those numbers while we're at it. Just to note before I move off this page, we're going to just have another look at this and compare with what the Wests have said. The featured missing children and featured missing adults highlight cases where photographs have been submitted by law enforcement for use in accordance with laws and policies for sharing the image of the missing person. This indicates that California has laws and policies surrounding who images are allowed to be released of. We'll come back to that. To have a photograph added, family members of a missing person, not just anybody, should submit the photographs to the law enforcement agency taking the missing person's report. So we'll just pop over here to the West family statements. The West family's public statements. And we see in the comment section they have a comment next to Wanda's statement, under Wanda's statement I should say, and it reads, all pictures and videos of the boys that the extended family has were turned over to law enforcement. We have not been together for more than a year as an extended family, so pictures and videos of us all are limited given COVID-19. If you are seeking to use any of the official images, you will need to go through the Bakersfield Police Department because there are people out there who do not have the best intentions, legal history, or behavioural practices. We are not engaging with individuals and outlets who have prioritised misinformation, disinformation, and flat-out lies to make a name for themselves. There are numerous fake news stories coupled with the threats and harassment that have resulted in so many distractions in the actual search for Orrin Orson. If you are seeking to use any of the official images, presuming that they mean for posters and banners, certainly not for ill intent, such as photoshopping bruises and other damage to the boys to allude to some type of child abuse. Let's have a look. Okay, so let's look at the dates here. We have January the 4th. Is the first statement they printed on this website. And this comes on the heels of their interview. So they do an interview just before Christmas, January 4th. 2 weeks later, they do another statement. The 12th, and a week after January 4th or so, another statement and a reward. February 7th, asking people to keep their eyes open and not just attacking people. And then of course we have Wonders in March. So we've had a statement from the West family every couple of weeks since it happened. So the point of accusing them of not talking and not saying anything, that's untrue. The fact that you don't want to listen to what's being said, that's on you. But there has been a regular communication from the West family and their extended family every couple of weeks. This month is the exception. This paragraph reads, the featured missing children and featured missing adults highlight cases where photographs have been submitted by law enforcement for use in accordance with laws and policies for sharing the image of missing persons. What are those laws and policies? To have a photograph added, family members of a missing person should submit their photographs to the law enforcement agency taking the missing person report. So that seems to be consistent with what the West are saying. Anyway, back to numbers. So the first thing we're going to have a look at is California City numbers. So here we've got an idea of what annual numbers look like per year. And we've also got the type of reports, which we're going to look into, and I'm going to make a point here on bunging some of these numbers together. So runaways, missing child who has left home without the knowledge or permission of parents or guardian. So in 2016 we had California State had 81,054 runaways, and in 2020 we're down to 62,008 runaways, and that's a difference of 20,000. Okay, so we have lost any child who has strayed or whose whereabouts are unknown. So in 2016 there were 247, in 2020 there is 180. So that number has also dropped. Catastrophe, any child who is missing after a catastrophe like a plane crash, boating accident, fire, flood, etc. There were 11 in 2016, there were 7 in 2020. Stranger abduction. It's important to notice this one. Any witnessed abduction of a child by a stranger or non-family member. So these will be Amber Alerts. If it's been witnessed, then there's a description of the person who took the child or their vehicle or something like that. That's what Amber Alerts are based on, description for the public to be on the lookout for this person, this vehicle. 2016 there are 25 stranger abductions, and in 2020 there is 30. parental family abduction. Any child taken by a parent or family member. This is a particularly high number, 1,193 in 2016. That seems to be on the increase in 2020 to 1,588. Suspicious circumstances. Now, this is the one I'm thinking we need to bung some numbers together here. Any child missing under suspicious circumstances that may indicate a stranger abduction. So it indicates a stranger abduction, but there's no witness, so it's not an Amber Alert. Nonetheless, it falls into a stranger abduction category. So there were 272 of those in 2016 and 251 of those in 2020. And then unknown circumstances. This is any child who disappears under circumstances unknown. Can't be traced, can't be put down to stranger abduction, can't be put down to catastrophe, lost or runaway. No evidence saying where the child went, how the child went, why, who, nothing. These are unknown circumstances. And there were 1,892 of those in 2016 and 1,138 of those in 2020. So just looking at the totals, as we've already noted, the 20,000 decrease between 2016 and 2020 is the majority of those are runaways. So we're going to look into these numbers. This is the state of California. So what I'm going to do now is going to have a look at what portion of those belong to Kern County. Now, these stats don't come in per city, they come in per county, so we can only look at it as the Kern County area and not California City specifically. And so we're going to turn to the statistics for counties. Okay, so we're now looking at the year 2020 statistics for all of the counties in California. So we go have a look down to the bottom there at Kern County. We had 4,333 runaways in the year 2020. Now these reports, incidentally, were all released at the start of 2021. I believe they released the previous year's reports at the beginning of the next year. So this does include December, when the boys went missing. So runaways, 4,333 for Kern County. And if we look back over here, that's a very, very small number of total California runaways, which is at 62,008. We have one child that was lost. We have 0 catastrophes, 0 stranger abductions. We have 14 parental or family abductions in Kern County. We have 8 suspicious circumstances, and we have 45 unknown circumstances, with a total of 4,401 reports to the police or law enforcement of missing children. These are reports to the police. This is not including cases solved or children found or anything along those lines. This is just simply reports made to and by law enforcement. So now I am going to go and look at the status of these cases. So we have a report made, law enforcement has recorded it on the system, and then police then go and investigate, and this is the status of those investigations. So again, 2020, everything in, including December, we have 3,106 children returned. That's a heck of a lot. So let's look again. Of the 4,401 total reports of missing children, 3,106 have been returned. This leaves very little that haven't been returned. We have 885 located, meaning the police know where they are, whether they be in danger or not in danger, or not returned or taken by CPS or whatever. So that is nearly 4,000 children returned or located. That's a heck of a lot of the entire amount missing. During the year 2020, only 4 children were found deceased. Only 4 children. Of all of the missing children, 55 were arrested. 2 were emancipated. 4 were voluntarily missing. 10 were invalid or withdrawn reports. 159 fall into the category of other, being one of those columns not listed there, and only 2 remain unknown. Which 2 children remain unknown in 2021? It's unknown whether they were runaways, lost, catastrophe, stranger abduction, parental or family abduction, suspicious circumstances. They obviously fall into the unknown circumstances by all accounts of law enforcement. Which 2 are the remaining unknown 2 in 2020? I think it's fair to say that that's Orrin and Orson West. So these numbers do not add up to a child trafficking ring targeting toddlers. There are 159 other children who haven't been returned, located, found deceased, arrested, emancipated, voluntarily missing, or withdrawn or invalid. There's only 159 children who have an other category. An other category meaning the police know, they just haven't found them. Because if the police didn't know, they would be in the unknown column. So the police know, or have a fair idea, or have some evidence where they might be, or how they have gone missing. There's 159, but there's only 2 that remain unknown in December, at the close of December 2020. This is very interesting. Okay, the reason I wanted to talk about the featured missing children again is because I'm going to go to that page and we're going to see Orrin and Orson listed on that page. Not because it's outstanding, not because that's all they have missing, but that because these are the cases highlighted where photographs have been submitted by law enforcement for use in accordance with laws and policies. So let's go and have a look now at featured missing children. And on the way down this page, just looking at the contacts here, we don't have any contacts at all for Cal City Police Department. So I'm not sure that means nobody's missing in Cal City. We can use this website to work out whether that's the case, but certainly they are not the contact point for any of these missing children. They were the contact point for Orrin and Orson. However, Bakersfield Police Department have taken over, and now the website reflects that information. Nearly all of the cases listed here are old cases. All of the cases here are old cases except for Orrin and Orson West. And you can come and have a look at this website if you want. It's oag.ca.gov/missing/featured/children. And you can have a look at those cases. They're all pretty much older cases. I think the most recent one, other than the boys, is 2017-ish. So what we're going to do is going to look for a missing persons search and see if we can look up for any missing people for Cal City, which supposedly has a child trafficking network stealing kids. A detailed search. Okay, Kern County. Date of birth range. Any children with a birth in this range? So what we're looking for is evidence of a lot of little kids missing to support this child trafficking story. And we don't have a lot of little kids missing. We have 2 little kids missing. In all of California, there are only 2 little boys who fit into this birth range. Who are in the Kern County area. Let's go back and let's do this again. Let's go younger again. Older again. Let's go up to 5. How's that? 2014. Up to 6 years old in the Kern County area. These guys are it. So I don't think there's any credence to the stories that Kern County or California City is some kind of nexus or hub of child trafficking of toddlers. The numbers just don't fit. It doesn't fit the statistics, it doesn't fit the reports, and it doesn't fit the search results. And this is not data that any one person or one office has control over. This data comes from the Missing and Exploited Children's database. It's controlled in a central environment at the DOJ, or the California Department of Justice. So if you want to say someone's jimmying the data to make it look different, then you have to be implicating all of the police officers in all of California state, all of the governmental officers in the California state, all of the people at the database end who do the database entry, all of the people in 911, all of the people in emergency. I mean, this is just too big a conspiracy to be, for absolutely no secrets to come out about it. So I think that it's just a ridiculous notion that there's any kind of major child trafficking thing going on in Kern County. And that should put a rest to some of those stories, because they are just stories. There is no data whatsoever to back up any of these claims. So I just hit the pause button for a minute so I could download the quarterly bulletin. This is for January 2021 to March 2021. We're actually coming towards the end of the second quarter, so there'll be another one out shortly. And what we're going to do here is have a look at whether there is any evidence of some sort of prolific child trafficking thing going on in California City. And so let's have a look at it. Let's go to this is the cases that there's only 1, 2, 3, 4 pages of cases. So this is a letter from the Manager of Investigative Services for the Acting Attorney General. Let's have a look. On behalf of the California Department of Justice, I am pleased to provide you with the most recent Missing Persons Quarterly Bulletin. This bulletin provides summary information on cases involving missing children and dependent adults for which a photograph has been received between January 2021 and March 2021. For a more comprehensive listing of reported missing person cases with photographs, please visit the AG's Missing Persons Internet site. Okay, which is where we have come from. So let's have a look. What do we say about using this bulletin? Please carefully review the photographs, physical descriptions, and names of the missing persons contained in this bulletin. Elementary school principals, in accordance with California Education Code Section 49068.5, are urged to review this bulletin anytime a new student is enrolled in their school. Keep in mind that the physical appearances of the missing persons may have changed. Interesting. They at least do take that into account. All physical information was obtained at the time the person was reported missing, and the picture is the most recent available at the time. Some photographs contain the notation age enhanced, indicating that the original photo was modified to render possible age progression. Computer enhanced photographs have been provided by the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. One would think they have a bit of experience in when you might age enhance a photograph. I very much doubt that would be 3 months after or 4 months after children have gone missing. Also keep in mind that after children have been abducted by strangers or non-custodial parents, they may have been enrolled in schools under different names. And the rest is, if you have information, blah blah blah. So let's have a look. San Diego District Attorney's Office. So this first little boy is missing from San Diego area. Second little boy from Huntington Park. Girl. The third baby is missing from Long Beach. And here are our 2 missing boys from the Kern County area. Interesting. There doesn't seem to be a lot of kids going missing from Kern County. Also interesting, these 2 boys are on the watch list, which is the 2 unknown from our previous spreadsheets that we were looking at. There are only 2 in Kern County, and these are obviously the 2 because they're here on the watch list. Now, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to have a look at the laws and policies by which photographs are released. So, we go here first. This is Penal Code 14211. A specifies that all reports must be taken, so you can't reject they can't reject a report of a missing person. B is talking about the jurisdictions, so the place where the person lives is a department that must contact and stay in contact with the place where the person was last seen. Sometimes those are the same place, same department. Sometimes they're not. C is talking about reasonable steps to be taken to locate the person using a specific form, and I've got that form up here, so we'll have a look at one of those in a moment. So by law they have to fill out this form, so whatever information this form asks for, that's what you have to give them. If the missing person, D, if the missing person is under 21, then the police department or sheriff's department has to broadcast a be on the lookout bulletin without any delay within its jurisdiction. So if we were talking in the case of B, where there are two jurisdictions, a place of residence and a place the person was last seen, then it would be both jurisdictions that would be required to issue a be on the lookout bulletin. Now, I think these be on the lookout bulletins are released in the way of nixels. That's my understanding. I could be wrong, but I think that's my understanding of what the be on the lookout bulletin helps to produce. E, if the person reported missing is under 21 years of age, or if there is evidence that the person is at risk, the law enforcement agency receiving the report shall, within 2 hours after the receipt of the report, electronically transmit the report to the DOJ via the California Law Enforcement Telecommunications System for inclusion into the Violent Crime Information Center and the Crime Information Center databases. Interesting. The boys are underage. There could be evidence they're at risk. They're certainly in the CPS system, so I think they are at risk just by default because they're in the CPS system. So there you go. They are automatically entered into the ETS and the VCIC and the NCIC databases. F, information not immediately available for electronic transmission to the department shall be obtained by the investigating agency and provided as a supplement to the original entry as soon as possible, but in no event later than 60 days after the original electronic entry. Supplemental information may include, but is not limited to, the following: dental records and treatment notes, fingerprints, photographs, description of physical characteristics, description of clothing the person was wearing when last seen, vehicle information, other information describing any person or vehicle believed to be involved in taking, abducting, or retaining the missing person. Interesting to note, medical records is not listed there because of HIPAA laws, I would say. Dental records is a different thing altogether because dental records and dental treatment assist with identification. There are some cases where medical notes may come into it, and that may be, in this particular case, something to do with the broken hip, if at all that broken hip had anything to do with the disappearance. Then we'll come to that because that's in the next penal code that we look at. And G, in cases where the report is taken by a department other than that of the city or county of residence of the missing person or runaway, the department or division of the Department of California Highway Patrol taking the report shall, without delay, and in the case of persons under 21 years of age, or where there was evidence that the missing person was at risk, within no more than 24 hours, notify and forward a copy of the report to the police or sheriff's department or departments having jurisdiction of the residence address of the missing person or runaway, and of the place where the person was last seen. There you go. So, by law, these departments all have to be communicating with each other. So if you thought California City Police Department has nothing to do with the investigation anymore, you were wrong, because by law they are required to be, as are Bakersfield Police Department. So now we'll go to the next one where we talk about this form, which I'm about to show you. So every department who has jurisdiction over this, whether it be the residence or the place where the person went missing, must complete one of these forms. That form shall include a statement authorising the release of dental or skeletal x-rays or both, and treatment notes of the person reported missing, and authorising the release of a recent photograph of a person reported missing who is under the age of 18 years. Now, a recent photograph, as at the time of the report, was most definitely given to the police. I don't think they go through and keep updating photographs. Now, when a case gets to a certain age, I think that they will enhance the photographs, and only on certain aged victims, or individuals rather. An adult is unlikely to change appearances over a 3 or 4 year period, whereas a child absolutely will. Over a 3 or 4 month period, it's very unlikely. We also will find some information on that. B. Included with the form shall be instructions which state that if the person reported missing is still missing 30 days after the report is made, the release form signed by a member of the family or next of kin of the missing person shall be taken by the family member or next of kin to the dentist, physician or surgeon or medical facility in order to obtain the release of the dental or skeletal x-rays or both, and treatment notices of that person, or may be taken by a peace officer if others fail to take action to secure those x-rays and treatment notes. Again, we'll be looking at one of those forms shortly. C. Notwithstanding any other provision of law, dental or skeletal x-rays or both and treatment notes shall be released by the dentist, physician and surgeon or medical facility to the person presenting the request, and shall be submitted within 10 days by that person to the police or the sheriff's department or other law enforcement agency having jurisdiction over the investigation. So they don't really get much choice, they pretty much have to do it. So in this particular case, West haven't been arrested for anything, so they obviously are cooperating with this as well. D. When the person reported missing has been determined by the agency to be an at-risk person and has not been found within 30 days, the law enforcement agency may execute a written declaration stating that an active investigation seeking the location of the missing person is being conducted, and that the dental or skeletal x-rays or both and treatment notes are necessary for the exclusive purpose of furthering the investigation. I don't see how the West would have got away with not cooperating with these. These are California state laws. So being uncooperative in these regards, we would certainly have seen some action on that. So E is talking about the obligation of the treating parties to produce said documents. F is talking about entering them into the database and so on. So now we don't really need to go too much further than that. We understand that there's a set process, and if you don't follow the process, then you're probably going to find yourself penalised under one of these codes. So now let's have a look at the laws involving the forms that have to be filled out. And there's a reason I'm doing this, so bear with me. Okay. This is the penal code involving the actual form that has to be filled out. and it's generally accompanied with a guidelines for handling missing persons investigations, and perhaps other similar guidelines. It also accompanies a checklist document so that peace officers don't actually forget anything in the process of trying to find a missing person. And okay, so law enforcement agencies, whatever their guidelines are in-house, have to be consistent with the state and federal law. The Commission's guidelines for handling missing persons investigations should be used as a model policy. There you go. So there is actually a federal guideline under which these investigations are conducted. By law, they must use the department's missing persons reporting form for the initial contact with the parent or family member. Alright, so now we will go and have a look at one of these forms, and I'll just wind the page up. Missing Persons Report for the State of California, pursuant to Penal Code 13519. 13519. Yep. Okay. So, we see here a lot of information. Their last known location or activity, possible destination, mental health or medical condition, known associates and lifestyle. It goes on and on, but there's a lot of information here on what you do have to provide to complete one of these forms. But we'll just go here to the alert for commercially sexually exploited child and human trafficking victim. If located, immediately contact 24 hours El Dorado Health and Human Services. Youth's name is a foster child from El Dorado County. He currently lives in a placement home and is currently AWOL from his or her placement since. So this is a type of guideline that they were discussing in the actual code section. So if there is any suspicion of them being sexually exploited or a human trafficking victim, then this will be issued with part of that form. But this is the point I wanted to draw from this form. I am a family member, next of kin, or law enforcement official investigating the disappearance of the missing person, and I hereby authorise the release of all dental or skeletal x-rays and other treatment notes, photographs, physical description and circumstances surrounding the disappearance to assist law enforcement agencies in locating the above-named missing person. This information may be used by the DOJ for inclusion in bulletins and posters which will be distributed throughout California and on the internet, including the Attorney General's website and the FBI's National Dental Image Repository to assist law enforcement agencies in locating the missing person. I don't know that these boys would have dental records just yet. I mean, I'm pretty sure they have at least one visit with the dentist up to the age of 3 or 4. But we have different standards in Australia. So I imagine they would have. That broken femur bone, I think, will probably be a massive identifier, regardless of how it happened or when it happened. That will definitely be an identifier that will go into these databases. Okay, and so the next one is authorization to release skeletal x-rays, dental photographs, and the physical description, etc., etc., to the National Missing and Unidentified Person System, and that is also an interesting thing to look at. So let's go and have a look at that now. Missing Persons DNA Program. For those people who think the boys haven't been actually identified with DNA, or the dogs didn't know that that was their clothes, or the police don't know that that's the boys' clothes, they absolutely do. They have the boys' DNA on a database, and that's what this form is saying. There's no separate signatures here. It's just one release of information and one lot of signatures agreeing to both of these things. So we do now know that the boys' DNA is absolutely on a database. So if the police happen to find remains, let's hope they don't, we're pretty sure they won't. If they do, they have their DNA on the system. Do the dogs know, do the police know that they gave the dogs the right clothing to smell or items of the children's belongings? I'm pretty sure they do, because that's, I'm assuming, where they got the DNA from. The interesting thing about this database is it's not just for California, it's for the entire nation. And so whenever they can get a DNA sample into that database, they will jump at the opportunity. Now, while I'm waffling, I might as well address something else that people tend to latch onto, and that's the issue of the polygraph. Well, there's a couple of issues with the polygraph, and I guess the first thing is somebody who's been an expert at polygraphs for 50 years may be an expert at polygraph. That doesn't make polygraphs a scientifically supported method. Just as a fortune teller may have been doing that for 50 years and may well have learned all there is to know about fortune telling, that doesn't necessarily make it scientifically based. So that's the first thing about polygraphs. There's not a lot of science behind it.
And I got to ask you, how much does the act of being under that much stress influence the results you get? Because I wasn't guilty of anything, but I sure felt like it sitting there.
It actually doesn't. The polygraph doesn't measure whether or not you're nervous. It measures whether or not you're telling the truth. And we know from the advent today of functional MRIs that when you lie and when you tell the truth, you use a different part of your brain. When you use the memory and tell the truth from what's in your memory, your brain doesn't work as hard as it does as when you lie and fabricate and you need to use your imagination.
With all due respect, sir, this gadget doesn't measure brain activity. This gadget, however, does.
Right, no. So in a real case, you would have a person for whom very much is at stake. Not $25 for participating in an experiment, but for example, life imprisonment, right? That it makes a very big difference, because when you're anxious, there's all kinds of brain activity that happens from anxiety that is in a totally different ballpark from the situation you were in.
Aren't you under more pressure, and wouldn't that be revealed when your life is
You're
at
saying
stake?
it would work even better in a real world situation?
That's my question, yeah.
I doubt it, for the following reason. If you are innocent, and you are being asked about the very thing you're suspected of, you're going to be just as anxious as you are if you're guilty of it. These guys are going to do, one scan and make a pronouncement. It's crazy.
You do throw a lot of cold water on them.
I think it's really irresponsible to use anything like this method anytime soon. Because
it could cause innocent people to go to jail?
Absolutely, and because I think there's an aura that, it's MRI evidence, the brain doesn't lie. Well, this is garbage, right? The brain doesn't lie, maybe, but the signal that's being used is a noisy, feeble, error-prone, very indirect measure of anything, which has not been established as a good measure of a lie. And to use this method to try to tell whether somebody's guilty or innocent is insane.
So Dan, what are some of the physical signs you look for to determine whether or not someone's lying, whether on the polygraph machine or just out in life?
Well, before I polygraph you, we're going to have an extensive pre-test interview. And in that pre-test interview, we're going to look for leakage. People leak deception. Signs of deception are a lot of stuttering, and repeating a question. What's your name? What's my name? You know what your name is. What do you have to repeat? What's your name? Because they're looking to have time to fabricate that lie. A lot of restless body movements show signs of anxiety. Even chewing gum. If somebody's chewing gum, they usually chew gum at their heart rate. So if you watch the gum chewing increases, you know their anxiety is increasing as you question them.
What about long pauses?
Long pauses.
Some of us had long pauses.
Yeah, because what you're doing is you're stopping to think and fabricate. So you're actually scanning your memory. And if you're lying, you're going to go to that imagination. You know, usually it's pretty easy to tell before a polygraph if somebody is being deceptive. And that's actually part of our credibility assessment process.
Thanks to the Blue Leaks, a hack of internal law enforcement documents, we're discovering that police around the country are learning how to detect lies using body language and other nonverbal cues. It's a crime-fighting shortcut. Instead of searching a vehicle, cops can politely ask if the driver has any drugs in the car. And if they blink, you cuff them. One professional lie identifier, Renee Ellery, who taught thousands of cops, claims on her business website, Eyes for Lies, only 50 experts can spot deception with exceptional accuracy. Renee Ellery is one of these experts. I'd hate to cast aspersions here, but methinks I spot a fib. She's not an expert. She's just a very confident notary public. The leaked flyer for the course shows the intention is to help officers identify anger, contempt, and disgust before words are even spoken. I wonder if police departments noticed any feelings of anger towards them this spring with all the nonverbal and very explicit verbal cues like F the police on signs while thousands protested. You know what? They'll probably need another training for that. Some people have a problem with Ellery's methods, namely scientists who study interrogation methods and exonerations. More like lies for lies, guys, huh? Huh? See, there's no scientific way to detect untruths, especially during a nerve-wracking interrogation, whether the suspect is making eye contact or not, excessively blinking, biting fingernails, or even biting the officer's fingernails. Even polygraph tests have been debunked and are about as useful as using a Ouija board to ask a murder victim who killed him. It's all B-U-L-L-S-H-I-T. Thanks, Jeffrey. If it wasn't, we wouldn't have these things called trials. According to the Institute of Criminal Justice Training Reform, not only are error-ridden forensics and faulty roadside drug tests putting innocent people behind bars, but also officers are regularly trained to respond to confrontations based on pseudoscience and unproven or discredited theories about potential dangers. Detecting lies like this assumes the person is guilty until proven innocent. You know what the Constitution says. My civics teacher said it was like the other way around, but her voice kind of raised slightly when she said it. I didn't buy it. The Blue Leaks also revealed reviews officers wrote about what they found most helpful in the course, such as the 7 universal facial expressions that all people have all over the world as a good indicator of lying. Scientists have proven over and over how body language and facial expressions are not, in fact, universal. I mean, for God's sakes, in Greece, they shake their head no when they mean yes. You guys should really stop. You could be confessing to a murder in the U.S. No moussaka at St. Quentin. Real experts claim the problem with junk science lie detecting is that it makes police feel more confident about their errors. And that's not what we want. We don't want cops more confident thinking they can read minds because a very long PowerPoint told them that they could. A standard interrogation method called the Reed method incorporates this junk science into pushing a confession out of a suspect by sometimes fabricating a narrative of guilt that officers repeat over and over until the subject cracks. This method is a proven failure. Of those who were wrongly convicted of murder and later cleared by DNA, 62% had falsely confessed, reports the Innocence Project.
The professional field that offers psychological assessment services to the court is called forensic psychology, and it's been growing steadily over the last few decades. Over the same period of time, there's been a major increase in the creation and marketing of psychological assessment tools. Psychological testing is a big business industry. There are thousands of different kinds of psychological tests, and they're often expensive to use. People might assume that psychological tests sold by reputable companies are based on strong science, but this assumption is problematic. To be clear, there are some excellent psychologists doing science-based, scientifically informed, evidence-based assessments. However, many others are not. We know this because we looked in depth at the psychological tests that are used in legal settings, and we also closely read actual legal cases that included this kind of evidence. Our new finding in this paper is that there is substantial variability in the scientific underpinnings of psychological tests. Although some of these psychological assessments have strong scientific foundations, many others fit criteria the U.S. Supreme Court has described as junk science. This is a problem because bad psychological evidence may contribute to unfair legal processes and unjust verdicts. The problem is made worse because the courts are not separating the good from the bad. Even though courts are required to screen out junk science, one of the major findings of our paper is that nearly all psychological assessment evidence is admitted into court without even being screened. So we looked at things like error rate and things like the reliability and validity of these tools. Can they measure what they purport to measure in a way that's valid and should be claimed as such? And we found quite a bit of variability there. I think part of the issue is that this is a big business. So there's some big companies out here that are publishing these tests and sort of looking for the next test that they might be able to publish. And I think there's some tension between scientific development and making sure a tool is right before it goes to market. I think that's one thing. Another thing is that, I'm a practitioner by training too, and nobody ever, I'm trained. I know I'm supposed to go look at the psychometric properties of a tool before I decide to use it, but I did not have a good concept that some of the stuff that's being marketed to me is not a strong tool. And I don't think that many other people are even aware either, many other clinicians in practice. So I hope that partially this will be educating everyone that everybody needs to be more scrutinizing about which tools are better and which tools are worse. I was going to mention that projective tools are probably the least scientifically reliable and valid. There's definitely some controversy about that in the literature, but a projective test is, for example, the Rorschach ink blot test. So if you give somebody a stimuli and you say, what does this look like to you, or tell me what this could be, then the clinician would score whatever that person says to mean something about that person and infer something about that. Those are the most scientifically questionable, and we find strong evidence that they're definitely in use.
Wouldn't our justice system be so much easier if everyone just took a lie detector test in front of the judge and the judge said guilty or not guilty based on the lie detector test? Give me a minute, let's talk about that. This is Attorney Jeremy Hogan, and this is your Legal Brief. Today's topic, are lie detector tests admissible in court? Lie detector tests don't really tell us if you are lying directly. Instead, you are asked questions and the machine measures your biological responses to the questions, such as your breathing and your heart rate, and then a polygraph expert will decipher those responses. In our courts, the judges are the gatekeepers of what evidence is allowed to be presented to a jury. The general test for scientific evidence is what is called the Dalbert standard. The Dalbert test asks whether the scientific evidence applies reliable principles and methods, and that is the issue. Although polygraph pros will tell you that their tests are 90% accurate, no one really knows. And no one really knows because it depends on what you're trying to find out. If you ask a woman, would you ever shoot your husband, she will say no. But maybe she would if her husband was physically harming her children, or maybe not putting the toilet seat down. And that's the big problem with the polygraph test. The reliability of the test itself depends on what questions you're asking and what you're trying to find out. So when an attorney presents a judge with polygraph test evidence, the judge will look at the polygraph test in the light of the facts and circumstances of the case and either let it in or not. And the answer is that courts generally do not find that polygraph tests are reliable enough to meet the Dalbert. And there you have it. Polygraph tests are generally not admissible into court because they simply aren't reliable.